The Grand Blackwood Hotel stood shrouded in an almost perpetual twilight. Its facade, a monument to a bygone era, was adorned with gargoyles that leered down at passers-by. The hotel had an air of faded grandeur, a relic of a time when elegance and mystery intertwined. Its dimly lit lobby was a labyrinth of shadows, the air thick with the scent of aged wood and forgotten memories. It was the kind of place that whispered stories of a troubled past. The silence was broken only by the soft ticking of a grandfather clock, its pendulum swinging back and forth like a metronome, counting down the seconds until some unknown event. The few pieces of furniture scattered around the lobby were draped in dust covers, giving the impression that the hotel was in a perpetual state of slumber. The air was heavy, not just with the weight of the past, but with an almost tangible sense of dread.
David, a weary traveller with tired eyes and a briefcase in hand, stepped across the threshold of the Grand Blackwood Hotel. The world outside was a cacophony of noise and light, but the hotel was an oasis of eerie quiet. It was as if he had stepped into a different dimension, one where time moved differently, if it moved at all. He approached the check-in desk, his footsteps echoing in the cavernous space. He was a man of routine, a businessman accustomed to the predictability of spreadsheets and conference calls. Tonight, however, he found himself drawn to the inexplicable allure of the Grand Blackwood. It was as if the hotel itself was a silent siren, calling out to him, promising a break from the mundane.
Behind the counter stood a pale young man, his face half hidden behind a tattered registry book. His eyes, when they met David's, were unsettlingly intense. They seemed to see right through David, peering into the depths of his soul. David felt a shiver run down his spine, a primal instinct warning him of danger. "Just the one night, sir?" the receptionist asked, his voice a low monotone that seemed to slither through the air.
David nodded, a strange unease settling in his stomach. Yes, just one night.
As the receptionist handed him the key, his gaze flickered to David's, a strange knowing glint in his eyes. "And sir," he said, his voice barely a whisper, just a word of advice, "avoid room 404.
David's room was as antiquated as the rest of the hotel, its heavy drapes drawn tight against the night. He tried to dismiss the receptionist's words, but they lingered in the back of his mind like a bad omen. The silence in the room was almost suffocating, broken only by the occasional creak of the floorboards beneath his feet. He lay in bed, but sleep wouldn't come. The silence was no longer peaceful, but rather pregnant with anticipation. It was as if the very walls of the hotel were holding their breath, waiting for something to happen. He could have sworn he heard whispers coming from the hallway outside his door, whispers that seemed to dissipate as soon as he strained to hear them. The next morning, over coffee in the deserted dining room, David couldn't shake off the feeling of unease. He found himself drawn back to the front desk, compelled by a morbid curiosity to learn more about the forbidden room 404. "About last night," David began, trying to sound casual. "You mentioned room 404. Is there something I should know?"
The receptionist's smile was thin and humorless. "Let's just say, sir, that room has a way of unsettling our guests. It's best left undisturbed."
David persisted. "Unsettled how? What happened in there?"
The receptionist's gaze turned distant, her voice taking on a hollow tone. "The mirrors, sir. They say the mirrors in that room reflect something else."
That night, curiosity consumed David. He couldn't ignore the pull of the unknown any longer. He found himself standing before the heavy oak door of room 404, his hand hovering over the tarnished brass knob. He pushed the door open. The room was a mirror image of his own, right down to the smallest detail. But as David stepped inside, his heart skipped a beat. The reflection staring back at him from the full-length mirror wasn't him. The reflection in the mirror was identical to David in every way except for its eyes. They were empty sockets, devoid of life, reflecting nothing but a chilling abyss. David stumbled back, a scream caught in his throat. He turned to flee, but the door was gone. He was trapped.
Back at the front desk, the pale receptionist greeted a new guest. A businessman, much like David, with tired eyes and a briefcase in hand. As he handed over the key, he offered the same chilling warning. And sir, just a word of advice. Avoid room 404. The cycle continues.
Nervous chuckle. Thanks for the heads up.
The cycle continues.